Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Please together. Om Jnana Timirandasya Ganandana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Shrayam Rupa Kamadayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamalang Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padang Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karana Sindhu Taina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapcha Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vrishavana Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Padita Nam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So we have chosen a verse from the Gita because you can see in the second two lines refers to Vyasadeva and the purpose of the Veda. So we'll just, because you're all familiar with this verse, we'll just go line by line, then you can repeat. Please repeat. Sarvasya chaham hridhi sanivishto madhaksmrite jnanam apohanam cha Vedescha sarve aham eva vedyo Vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham Sarvasya chaham hridhi sanivishto Matak smriti jnanam apohanam cha Vedescha sarver aham eveda vedyo Vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham Sarvasya chaham hridhi sanivishto Vedesha sarve aham eva vedyo Mataji's? Okay, so translation, please repeat. I am seated in everyone's heart. I'll just recite, then you repeat. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Please repeat. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of the Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Translation, Srila Prabhupada. Purport. The Supreme Lord is situated as Paramatma in everyone's heart, and it is from Him that all activities are initiated. The living entity forgets everything of his past life, but he has to act according to the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is the witness to all his work. Therefore, he begins his work according to his past deeds. Required knowledge is supplied to him, and remembrance is given to him, and he forgets also about his past life. Thus the Lord is not only all-pervading, He is also localized in every individual heart. He awards the different fruitive results. He is worshipable not only as the impersonal Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the localized Paramatma, but as the form of the incarnation of the Vedas as well. The Vedas give the right direction to people, so that they can properly mold their lives and come back to Godhead, back to home. The Vedas offer knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and Krishna in his incarnation as Vyasadeva is the compiler of the Vedanta Sutra. The commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Vyasadeva in the Srimad Bhagavatam gives the real understanding of Vedanta Sutra. The Supreme Lord is so full that for his deliverance of the conditioned soul, he is the supplier and digester of foodstuff, the witness of his activity, and the giver of knowledge in the form of the Vedas. And as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the teacher of Bhagavad Gita. He is worshipable by the conditioned soul. Thus God is all good, and God is all merciful. Atak pravishta shasta jnanam. The living entity forgets as soon as he quits his present body, but he begins his work again, initiated by the Supreme Lord. Although he forgets, the Lord gives him the intelligence to renew his work where he ended in his past life. So, not only does a living entity enjoy or suffer in this world according to the dictation of the Supreme Lord situated locally in the heart, but he receives the opportunity to understand the Vedas from him. If one is serious about understanding the Vedic knowledge, then Krishna gives the required intelligence. Why does he present the Vedic knowledge for understanding? Because a living entity individually needs to understand Krishna. Vedic literature confirms this. Yosho sarve veder giyate. In all Vedic literature, beginning from the four Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, and the Upanishads and Puranas, the glories of the Supreme Lord are celebrated. By performance of Vedic rituals, discussion of the Vedic philosophy, and worship of the Lord in devotional service, he is attained. Therefore, the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna. The Vedas give us direction by which to understand Krishna and the process of realizing him. The ultimate goal is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedanta Sutra 114 confirms this in the following words: Tattu samanvayat. One can attain perfection in 3 stages. By understanding the Vedic literature, one can understand his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By performing the different processes, one can approach him, and at the end, one can attain the supreme goal, who is no other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this verse, the purpose of the Vedas, the understanding of the Veda, and the goal of the Vedas are clearly defined. Mukam karoti vachalam pangam laite girim yad kriyam tamaham bande Shri Gurun dinatarinam sarvasya cha ham hridi sanivishto matuk smrite jnanam apohanam cha Vedescha sever aham eva vedyo vedantakrit vedavid eva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So Veda comes from the root, vid, to know. So Veda means knowledge. So when the material universe is manifest, that is a creation. Now we see in this world, whenever there is a creation, there is a handbook. We have telephones, motor cars, computers, whatever, but no company creates something and then doesn't give a manual to explain the usage and the goal, how to properly use the facilities of that article. If we think that about this creation, that thought is based in atheism, is it not? But if we are theistic, we must consider, just like a telephone has a manual, then because it is created, manufactured, put together by a person, so that person also intelligently gives a clear manual for the operation of that phone. So, as theists, we should consider, and we find this throughout the world, that those people who are theistic, they all consider that there is some scripture that, as Prabhupada at the end of the purport said, that explains this world, our relationship with it, the Supreme Lord, the relationship of that Supreme Lord to this world, and our relationship to this world and the Supreme Lord, Sambandha Gyan. And then, as Prabhupada said, the process of attaining Sambandha Abhideya Gyan, how you can put that knowledge into practice. And then the goal, the ultimate goal, Prema Prayojan. But Prayojan doesn't just mean goal, it means necessity. We are in this world, Dukkalayam Asashvitam, it is temporary, and we are beset by endless misery, confusion, mental, bodily, natural, other living entities. How can we overcome these problems? There is a necessity, and that necessity is Prem, Krishna Prem. That is the purpose of the Veda, to develop, give the path by which that Prem can be attained. So, Veda Vyas very kindly at the beginning or the end of Dwarpa Yuga rather, before the beginning of Kali Yuga, compiled the Vedic literature, which is this handbook on these three sections, Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojan. And that knowledge previous to Kali Yuga and in Dwarpa Yuga was always memorized. The great sages, the rishis, the great brahmanas, the great cultured disciplic successions, they would automatically memorize the Vedic literature. So Vyasdev, Vedanta Krit, Krishna says, I am the compiler of the Veda. I wrote the Veda So the Vedas are pre-existing, but because in Kali Yuga, Manda Sumanda Matayo Manda Bhagyo, the people will lose intelligence, good quality, and so on, then there is a necessity to compile this handbook of material and spiritual knowledge. So Vedavyas, and every Dorpa Yuga in the cycle, there is an incarnation of Vedavyas. Actually, the next Maha Yuga will be, the incarnation will be Ashvatthama. If you read Mahabharata, you may be surprised. Ashvatthama did terrible thing. He killed the sleeping sons of Draupadi. But actually Vedavyas approached him after this, after he was chastised by Arjuna and banished to wander till the end of Kali Yuga without a friend. After he was banished in this way, Vedavyas approached him and educated him in Krishna and all spiritual knowledge. So Ashvatthama will become the next Vedavyas in the next Dorpa Yuga. So this is a very important task, and anybody who actually studies the Vedic literature, they will understand there is no literature of any comparable nature in the world today. Everything pales into insignificance compared with the Vedic literature. What is the origin of that? That manifestation, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adakevaya. In the first verse of the Bhagavatam, Shri Shri Gaunitai Krishna Balaram Radhasham Sundar Lalit Vishaka Shalagram Maharaj Giri Govardhan Gomata Shri Guru Parampara Tulsi Maharani Ke. Yeah. So in the, where was I? I was thinking too much of the deities. Huh? Yes, Vyasadeva, he compiled this. But what is the origin? So the origin, Tene Brahma Hridaya, the first verse of the Bhagavatam, when Lord Brahma has performed his austerities atop the lotus that springs from Garbhadakshay Vishnu, the Tene Hridaya, this means the Vedic knowledge is infused into the heart of Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma is, in that sense, the manifestation of the Vedic knowledge. And then this knowledge is passed down in Sri Guru Parampara. The sons of Lord Brahma, the Brahma Sampradaya itself, the Kumara Sampradaya, the Rudra Sampradaya, and then from Narayan and Lakshmi, the Lakshmi Sampradaya. So these are the four Sampradayas, each with their Acharya, Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Vishnu Swami, and Ramanuja, and Nimbarka in the Kumara. These are the proper avenues for understanding Vedic knowledge. Vedic knowledge is apurashaya. It is not man-made. It is divine. Apurashaya Brahma. It manifests from the transcendental platform, which, of course, is beyond the ken of the materially conditioned. Krishna is adhokshaja. He is beyond the material mind and senses. So how to understand that Vedic knowledge? One should study under Uttamadikari in disciplic succession. Therefore the Vedas are called Shruti. Navavida Bhakti. Shravanam is the first one. So Shruti means that which is heard. So the Vedas are Shruti. And so this is the correct way to understand Veda. There are so many mundane scholars, particularly in Kali Yuga, without disciplic succession, they approach the Vedas and they all write all sorts of nonsense. Because they use their empirical system, they use their intellect, they use speculation, their mind, anuman, and they come to false conclusions. Then they print these in big fancy books, stamped by mundane universities. But this is all useless, because they have not received the shelter of, as we see here, Sri Krishna. If somebody actually performs sadhana, paripatena pariprashnena sevaya in the Gita, if he pays obeisances to the Guru, if he inquires relevantly about spiritual knowledge, and if he serves the Guru as a menial servant and serves the instructions of the Guru, then by the grace of Krishna within the heart, he will be given the intelligence to understand the Veda. You cannot approach with mundane attitude, mundane scholarship. So actually, at the present day, in the West, they completely ignore, dispel the understanding of the Vedas as some kind of polytheism. But they study the Vedas from the point of view of checking out the grammar, some of the ideas, but it is all nonsense, their conclusions, because they do not enter into the proper process of approaching the Veda, which is to serve and hear from the spiritual master, and thereby get the grace of Krishna from within the heart to understand the Vedic conclusion, Siddhanta. So this is a very important point. The Vedas are there. They are the perfect description of material and spiritual and the Tatastha Shakti Jiva. But they have to be approached through the Uttamadikari, the embodiment. What is that verse? Tad Vijnanatham Guru Eva Bigatchit Samit Pani Shrotriyam Nistakam. So qualification of the Guru is there. He should be situated in transcendence. Brahma Nistakyam. That's also in 11th canto of Bhagavatam. And he should Shrotriyam. He should have heard the Vedic literature. So if one can, Acharyavan Purusho Vedya, Prabhupada used to quote, that means that one who has served and studied under the Acharya Purusho Veda, he is the knower of everything. That is the proper process. So the Vedic literature has been covered by the mundane scholars. But Srila Prabhupada, he took the Vedic literature and, as we say, as it is. Because he was a realized soul, and his presentation is spectacularly clear and relevant even to the modern day. So our duty is to present this spiritual knowledge before the world. We have an onus, Shruti, Shravanam Kirtanam. So we have a duty to explain and present this knowledge. Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. It is not that if you hear this knowledge, well then you should transmit this knowledge. Just like a light bulb. When the current is flowing through it, it is transmitting the light. If it is not transmitting, if the current is not flowing through hearing and chanting through the light bulb, then there is no light. So those who actually study and transmit this knowledge, they will become enlightened, and they will give the world enlightenment about spiritual knowledge, spiritual activity, and the goal of spiritual knowledge. That is very important. If you want to actually understand any subject matter, you should teach it. So, coming down from Brahma by the grace of Krishna, it is explained that Lord Brahma was enlightened by just hearing the flute song of Krishna. So, also our acharyas have written that the flute song of Krishna is embodied in the Vedas, and the essence of the Vedas is contained, Chaitanya Upanishad, in the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So Vedavyas, seeing the approach of Kali Yuga, incarnates. He's Shaktivesh avatar. Shaktivesh, there's 6 kinds of avatar. Shakti Avesh, Shakti Avesh. It means one who is dressed, Avesh, in Shakti. So in the Agni Puran, it is explained that Mahavishnu incarnates as Vedavyas. Vedavyas is a soul, just like you and I, but he is dressed in the potency. So Krishna says, I am the compiler of the Veda. So actually this mundane world, people are so very foolish. They think that God is a job that they can apply to. I want to be God, they say, right? But you want to be God? Okay. You can become a Shaktivesh avatar by the grace of Krishna, and you can do extraordinary things like Purusharam. And you can compile incredible literature like Srila Vyasadeva, because Achintya Veda Ved, the living entity, is non-different from the Supreme Lord. And every devotee carries the Shakti of that Supreme Lord by his union through bhakti, not through tamishra, rebellious attitude to the supremacy of the Supreme Lord. So, the manifestation of Vyasadeva is very interesting, and he is a key protagonist in the Mahabharata. And in the Devi Bhagavata, it explains the mother of Vyasadeva is, in terms of manifestation, is known as Satyavati. So, in the Devi Bhagavata, which precedes, this story precedes the Mahabharata, there was one king of Chedi. His name was Vasu. So one day he was in the forest, doing his work, supervising the forest, so on and so forth. He saw 2 animals in coitus. So he had a discharge. That semen was put and accidentally put into the river. Now in that river, which was the Kalindi, there was also one fish who previously was an Apsara. Her name was Adhika. She was under a curse. She had made some offense in Swargaloka, and the Rishi had cursed her, you become a fish. She swallowed that semen of the king of Chedi and became pregnant. On the bank of the Kalindi there was one fisherman. He captured that fish, and it was an extraordinary fish, as you can imagine. And the fish was opened, and inside there were 2 embryos, and the children came to life. The son was given to Vasu, that king of Chedi, and the king took the daughter. Because she was born from a fish, she was called Matsya Gandha, which is not a particularly attractive smell. But she was extremely beautiful, born from an Apsara. So she was the delight of the fisherman. That fisherman also had a boat, and he used to take pilgrims and persons, whatever, across the river Kalindi on their touring. So Satyavati took up that job, and she used to row across the river. So now we come to the start of the Mahabharata, King Santanu. King Santanu also, he had married Ganga Devi, if you know the story. Ganga Devi was divine beauty. One day Santanu was on the bank of the river and Ganga Devi manifest unlimited beauty. So the king begged her to become the wife. And the queen, Ganga Devi, became his queen. But she made one condition, that if you ever contradict my behavior, then I will immediately leave you. So if you read Bhagavatam and the Puranas, you will see that the 8 Vasus had made an offense. And they were cursed to take birth upon the earth. So they enlisted Ganga Devi to be her mother, on the understanding that as soon as they were born, they would be plunged into the Ganga, which is connected to the heavenly planets, and thereby reattain their position in Svargaloka. At the lotus, the Vasus, they control material elements. The Devatas, they may manage the material elements, but the Vasus actually control the elements themselves. So Ganga Devi, she was the chaste wife of the king. Progressively she gave birth to 7 sons, and every son she put in the Ganga, the Jamuna. And this was heartbreaking to the king, but he was so entranced by Ganga Devi, her beauty, he could not contradict her, knowing the arrangement. So finally, when the 8th son was within Ganga Devi took that son upon birth to the river and was about to plunge the child. But the king said, "No, you cannot do that. Why are you doing this, oh cruel mother?" He says, "Now you've contradicted me. I'm released from our arrangement. But you can, because a wife should not contradict the husband, you can take the child. That child is Bhishmadev. Bhishmadev is the Vasu in charge of water. So the king was heartbroken to lose his beautiful wife, but joyous to have a fine son. So he felt great separation, and he used to go in the forest, chasing down, controlling the animals that made disturbance, culling. That is the job of the Kshatriya, to keep the forest in balance, and he must learn the killing art, as Kshatriya must kill. So within his heart there was an empty space where Ganga Devi had lived. But one day he met Matsya Ganda, the beautiful daughter. Oh, but before we go on to that, we should tell the story of Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva is born from Purashara and Matsya Ganda. She became Kasturi Manda. So Satyavati one day was taking across Parashara Muni, across the river, and the beauty of Satyavati and the undulation, it is explained, of the river aroused passion within Purashara Muni. He sat next to Matsya Gandhi, Satyavati, and entreated her for union to produce a child. But she said, "This is impossible. I'm a virgin girl. If you take me, if I have union with you, how will I find a proper husband?" So on and so forth. Parashara Muni explained, "I am a disciple of Vasishtha, actually son of Vasishtha, one of the sons of Lord Brahma. And you have no worry for that. And he said, we're in the middle of the river. So he produced a dark mist and created an island within the Jamuna by his spiritual potency. And they had union on that river island. And Vedavyas was born from that union immediately. Of course, we're not talking about Kali Yuga people. We're talking about devatas and great rishis and the Supreme Lord here. And immediately Vyasadeva arose, grew to adolescence. And prior to the union, Parashara Muni changed the odor of Matsya Gandha, and she became known at that point as Kasturi Manda. Musk is very delightful, arousing smell. She became known by that name. So she was also known as Kali because she was dark. Now, Vyasadeva manifested and immediately grew to this is also a further part, we don't have time. He was also very dark and born in a mystic cloud of darkness. So he said, I'm leaving now to perform tapasya, but you, dear mother, whenever you need me, you call me by thinking. So Satyavati became the wife, complicated story, of Santanu, and gave birth to Chitranga and Vichitravira. But anyway, we can't tell the whole Mahabharata. You'll have to look it up. So this is the manifestation of Vedavyas. Now, there is other stories in his childhood, he was encouraged to have one. He was lonely for a son, so Sukha Goswami of Bhagavatam was his son. So he learned the Vedas from the sages in the forest, the penances, and he decided, my mission now, incarnation, Shaktivesh, is to compile all those Vedas. So there was one unit Veda, but it was not very organized in the sense of divided. So he divided that one Veda into four: the Rig, Yajur, Samaveda, Atharva Veda. So the Rig Veda he gave under the supervision of Paila, his disciple. And the Rig Veda is composed of mantras glorifying Krishna and the Devas. But the Devas are the extension, the limbs of Krishna. So the prayers to the Devas are actually directed towards the Supreme Lord. The mundane scholars think in this way, especially from the Rig Veda, they think that this is polytheism. They're worshipping many gods. But actually, the Devatas should be worshipped, but particularly as the extensions of the Supreme Lord. The Yajurveda was composed and given to Vaisampanya. Vaisampanya means a person of extraordinary intelligence. And this Veda, Yajur is reference to Yajna, is full of mantras and prose that are to be recited during Yajna. The Samaveda was given to Janmani. He wrote the Purva Mimamsa. Prayers, mantras, especially for the Soma Yajna. And the Atharva Veda was given to Samantu. You can read about this in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam. And that Veda contains a wide range of mantras for healing disease, restoration of harmony, banishment of evil spirits, and it celebrates the power and opulence of Sri Krishna. Now each Veda, that is only a very general picture of each Veda. Each Veda contains 4 branches. Samhitas. Samhita, Sanghita, means collection, just like you have Brahma Samhita. It is a collection of ideas and concepts that are presented for the education of people. And then there are the Brahmanas, the second section. This gives prayers and procedures to be followed during the different yagyas. Practical instruction. And then there are the Aranyakas. These Aranyaka refers to wood and forest dwellers. So this knowledge is esoteric knowledge, particularly to be given by the rishis to their disciples in their ashrams in the forest. And then out of the Anyakas are the Upanishads. Upa means preparatory. It is preparing and directing the spirit soul away from the Vedic knowledge, which is full of karmakanda processes, towards transcendence. There, also in the Gita, there's that verse, Veda Vishya Veda Nistragunya Bhavajana Nirvanvo Nityasatvasto Niryoga Shema Atvavan. The Vedas mainly deal with the 3 modes of material nature, karma kanda, jnana kanda, but transcend that and become situated in the self. Krishna tells Arjuna, become transcendental. So the Upanishads direct in that way. Altogether, these Veda, this is called the Veda, and it is 1 lakh mantras total. Now, the aim of Vyasadeva was to present this knowledge, of course, write it down, but to increase uniformity in practice. Now the Vedanta Sutra is based, Sutra means very compressed. It is the knowledge of the Upanishads put in very compressed form. It's 560 slokas, and the best commentary is Valadev Vidyabhushan, the Govinda Vasya in our line. And that commentary explains the Anta, the Veda Anta. The Upanishads are also called Vedanta because they give the goal of the Veda, which, as Krishna said to Arjuna, is to attain transcendental life. So the Vedanta Sutra is the summation of the philosophical, ontological knowledge of the Veda, pointing towards transcendence. Now, Veda Vyas then composed, understanding that in Kali Yuga, people are not very intellectual, they don't have good memory, so he composed the Mahabharata. That is also 100,000 verses, and that is the 5th Veda. Some people dispute that, but they don't know what they're talking about. It was especially composed by Veda Vyas, full of stories that illustrate the Vedic knowledge in a practical sense, because everyone likes a good story. So the brilliance of Veda Vyas, Vyas means one who has very fine intelligence. He composed the Mahabharata for this purpose. Now, just like the 4 Vedas, the philosophical summary is in the Vedanta, so the philosophical summary of the Mahabharata is Bhagavad Gita. So he had composed all this and he was not satisfied. This is in the Bhagavatam, right at the beginning of the Bhagavatam. So Narada Muni, his guru, approached him and said, "Why are you not satisfied?" "Shall I tell you? Because you've not properly glorified the name, form, qualities of the Supreme Sri Krishna. Plus, the Vedas, full of yagya, karma, kanda rituals, which is for opulence and happiness in the material world, people will use that as a way of enjoying the material world, which is ultimately irreligion. So you're not satisfied because you have not fully glorified the Supreme Lord. So second verse of Bhagavatam, you know, what is that? Dharma projita kaitavotra. Kicking out all materially motivated religious performance, motivated by karma and jnana, enjoying in the material world and monastic achievement. So then Vyasadeva understood that, and he is explained in the Bhagavatam, he meditated